So I had an interview lined up with my brother Hex, but we weren't able to coordinate it. It was supposed to be for today, so it kind of fell through. I didn't really have anything backup, but I still want to get an episode out for this week. So what I'm going to do is I want to share a little story, and it's got a lesson in there. So I wrote this little, I don't know, like a post or an article or some shit. I've been doing these emails every week. I'll tell you at the end on how you can get in on those if you're interested. But let's just jump into this. So I had posted an old picture of a piece that I did in 1994. It was with one of my favorite writers of the time, SE1. Before that, he wrote Selfish. Before that, he wrote Reek. He's from AWR. Early on, when he was Reek, he had this really clean, super dope style. And then as he evolved into SE1, he started doing this really cool, kind of grimy type of style that I had never seen before. It was a really unique style. And the way he painted was also super interesting because at that time in the 90s, early, mid-90s, everybody was trying to be as clean as possible and do all these like crisp lines and go back and fix things and all that shit. But SE1 was doing this like kind of, it was clean, but it was dirty clean, kind of hard to explain. But like, how when you're using a high pressure can, and back then it was Krylon and Rusto, we were painting with Krylon this particular day. And I was painting with him and I was watching him and actually my style is super simple if anybody's familiar with my work. Like, so I would finish my shit in, an hour and a half or something like that. And he's doing this really complex thing that was probably, I don't know, I think it took him like 3.5 hours or something like that. So he was like, hey man, just help me finish my shit. And so he was kind of schooling me on how he did his stuff. And I was watching him really closely. And you know how like with a high pressure can, you'd be, if you get too close to the wall, the line isn't really clean. It's clean, but it's blobby, because the paint's kind of splattering a little bit. And so he would paint like that. And that was kind of like added to the style. And every now and then he'd get a drip and he wouldn't clean it up. He would just leave it there. And so it was really interesting to watch. And like, it's pretty cool because, this was 1994 and now we're talking 2022 and I still do some of the same shit that I learned by painting with him. And we had like a small handful of missions that we did together. I would meet him at like 4:00 in the morning and we'd go paint in Venice. And so anyways, that's not even what I wanted to talk about actually, but that's setting it up, I guess. So I did this piece and I was super happy with it. And our pieces ran for a little while. It was at the old Venice Pavilion. And so one day I'm walking in and I'm rounding the corner and I see SE1's piece is still there. And then mine comes into view and there's a big black squiggly line right through it. And I was just like, oh shit. Like, that feeling you get where your heart just sort of sinks and like you get that pit in your stomach and you're like, what the fuck, what happened? And, I don't even remember the guy that I'm not even going to talk. It's cool. Like we actually have talked on Instagram and, so, and I don't hold on to shit anymore, especially like shit that's so old. So, I mean, it's no hard feelings at all. And, actually it was a good learning lesson for me. So I saw that this line and then this dude wrote his name and I'm like, God, what the fuck happened? Like, why do I all of a sudden have beef with this person? And when I think back to the 90s, when I was really active, on illegal graffiti, I had a handful of beefs with people that was the same thing. Like my shit just started getting dissed and I didn't even know why. I didn't even know why the beef happened. And so he and I were going head to head just on the streets. Like anytime I saw him, I would cap him. Anytime he saw me, he would cap me. We would slash each other. We'd do all this stuff. So after a while, I ended up running into him at Venice and I got a little aggressive with him and I've never really been violent. So it was just sort of like me sort of being the way I thought I was supposed to be at the time, but it didn't end up going into any like a physical altercation. We ended up battling. And then after we battled, we all went and ate McDonald's together. It was just so funny. And you know, I don't know. It was just kind of weird, and then we didn't have any problems after that. And I don't remember if I ever ran into him again, but we never slashed each other's stuff. We squashed it right there. So I never even learned what it was. But so in this thing that I wrote, I was kind of trying to think of like some of the lessons there, and so I'll get into that. So basically what I was talking about was, in the graph scene, you could go out and try to do things. In my opinion, what's the right way to do things is go and look for spots that, there's shit that's all scribbled on, or, a bunch of layers, or a piece has like a bunch of tags and all this kind of shit all over it. Those pieces are fair game, and we all have an understanding that once a piece has a bunch of shit all over it, it's fair game to go over it. And so even though I have no idea what this beef was from, if I can find his Instagram, I might ask him because I'm curious. But so what I was thinking is, you could go about things with the best of intentions and go over a spot like what I was just talking about. And, according to the rules of the game, the unwritten rules, we shouldn't have a problem. But what I was talking about in the article that I wrote, I don't even know if calling it an article is... It's like 6 paragraphs. It's super short. There's probably a lot of instances where you go and you paint on a spot that has tags and all this kind of shit, and then that person comes by and they see that you're up where they used to be up, and they don't know that their shit had tags all over it. So maybe it's possible that there's this instant assumption that you just went over them, and then they feel that they've been disrespected or something like that, and then beef starts. So I mean, I think the point that I was trying to get at when I was writing was like, you could go about things with the best of intentions, and somebody could perceive it completely different. You can look at that in your life, the way you say things, the things that you do. You may be coming at things with good intentions, and then the way that it's perceived from somebody else is bad intentions. And you could be on the other side of that. And like, I know that I have been on the other side of that, where somebody's doing something with good intentions, and I read it the wrong way and I got pissed, and then later realized I was wrong, and if it kind of feels, it doesn't feel good, So, it was something that I was thinking about, and I was thinking that there's probably a lot of beefs that happen with shit like that, where it's like the one person didn't do anything wrong. I'll kind of just winging it on this. So I'm a little all over the place, but there was another time when I went to this place. It was called the Panic Zone. It was this like legendary, was it the Panic Zone? Fuck, I might be getting that wrong. It was a spot you could see from the freeway. And, there was a guy, another person that I had beef with, and I don't even know why. Like, he just started dissing all my shit. And at first I didn't even participate. I didn't fire back because I just didn't know anything about this person. And I would just much rather never have beef. Like, beef is just it's so stupid to me. I mean, it just, it's an endless cycle. Because like, you walk in and you see something slashed to yours, and then you're like, fuck that, I'm going to slash him back. And then it just keeps the cycle going. Like, the way I look at it now is like, I've just sort of made this decision that I'm not going to participate. Like, so I'm old now. I'm not going to get into any of that shit. But even if I wasn't, I think I would want to take the mindset of like, look, man, like, you got a problem with me. I don't have a problem with you. I'm not going to participate. Like, you slash my shit, I'll just fix it. I'll go back over it. Whatever. I mean, you go and you slash their shit, and then it just keeps going. Like, the beef never ends until it gets settled in one way or the other. And if you look at the culture, sometimes it gets settled in a pretty bad way, like deadly at times. And we've seen that happen numerous times, where people actually lose their lives over beef. So it's like, are we really going to go down that path? I already did a whole episode on this, so I don't want to get too far into that. But the lesson that is there is like that idea of the intentions. Like, you can go about things with the best intentions, or they could be going about things with the best intentions, and the shit could be read wrong. So, Anyway, I'll tell that quick story real quick. I know, I'm sorry. I'm all over the place. This is kind of fucked up. But so this guy was beefing with me. This is a whole different scenario. And I didn't know who he was. I didn't know why he was beefing with me. And so I went to this spot. I think it was a panic zone. I can't remember for sure, but you could see it from the freeway. So there was a big UTI piece there. And I've always had a lot of respect for them. And there's no way I would ever like cap half of a UTI piece with a throwy, you know. This is not something that I would do. I don't do that to anybody, but I certainly wouldn't do that to a crew that I respected, obviously. And so the guy that was beefing with me, he had capped over half of that UTI piece and kind of caught tags all over it. So it looked like he was disrespecting them. But it was like, hey, half the piece is capped. So, you know, according to the rules, it's fair game. It's already fucked up. So I'm going to go over this other section, you know? And so when they drove by, they saw me and this dude capped their shit, and their shit was hanging out all over, you know. I think I covered my half, but he didn't. Like, I don't remember all the details, but I'm the kind of person that will cover everything, you know? Like, I don't want to leave their shit hanging out because I don't want any perception that I just didn't give a fuck. And I feel like it's the right way to do things. And so I feel like, if I remember right, I don't have flicks of this, but I feel like I covered my section, but this guy was up and he just did sort of like a bubble letter, kind of right in the middle of their shit. So when they were driving by, I'm sure it looked like I was part of that, like I disrespected them. And so obviously it was a misunderstanding. But so I'm going back a couple days later, and I want to drive by the spot because, you know, as a bomber, you want to do that. You want to see what it looks like from the freeway. And so I'm driving by and I see all these UTI tags all over my shit. And I was like, oh my God, what the fuck, man? I wasn't trying to beef with them. It was like, you know, I thought I was doing things right. I ended up getting on a phone call with them and we cleared it up. And, but it was a misunderstanding, you know, like I thought I was doing everything right. So, I guess like the whole lesson and the reason that I wanted to talk about this was obviously, you know, what is the takeaway here? I think, I guess there's two things. Like, number one, you know, the graffiti culture is a tricky thing to navigate. So what I would say is, just as a practical lesson, everybody has a phone in their pocket these days. And back then, obviously, you know, we had cameras, but it was, you know, disposable film cameras or shit like that. But you got your phone in your pocket. If you're going to go over something that has tags on it, just take a picture. Take a picture first, and then you got a little evidence, you know, to show what your intentions were, if anything comes back. But then the other thing is, and one of my takeaways from it when I was kind of like thinking about all this stuff, is this quote by Viktor Frankl. And I've said this quote on the podcast before. It says, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response. In our response lies our growth and our freedom. So, you know, the idea is, let's say you're a graph writer and you go and you see your shit has been covered up by somebody else. Your knee-jerk reaction is the first thing you want to do. Oftentimes, it's not the thing you should do. You know, so if you go, oh, fuck that, you know, he went over my shit, and you slash it, you write your name, and then you walk out of the yard and you're on your way home and you're like, you know what? You know, I wonder if there was a bunch of tags on my shit and I just didn't know it. And now you just started this beef because you didn't take that space. You know what I mean? You didn't take that space between the stimulus and your response. So you walk in, the stimulus is, oh shit, my shit has been covered up by this other guy. And maybe it's like, he didn't even do better than I did, because that's one of the unwritten rules, you know, don't cap what you can't burn. And so your response is, you know, fire back. The same thing can be said when you're driving down the street and somebody pulls in front of you or does some stupid shit on the road. That's the stimulus, and your response is the next thing. Lay on your horn, or if you're even more, you know, road rage, prone to road rage, maybe you drive up next to him, start yelling shit at him and all this kind of stuff. And then those things can spiral out of control. But had you taken that space between the stimulus and the response you might have chose a different response. Like if you're in the heat of the moment and you're pissed, that's never a good time to make a decision. I'm kind of putting all this onto these like beefs that I don't know what they have. I have no idea why they happened. I'm just kind of speculating that's a possibility. And I'm sure a lot of beefs start in that way. And that's how the UTI thing happened. I mean, not that they needed to take a space. I mean, they just saw me up next to this dude. And when I talked to the guy from the crew, he was like, yeah, and that's your homeboy. And I'm like, I don't even know that guy. And he actually has beef with me and I don't even know why. So, you know, we just got this misunderstanding here. You know, it was just everything was read wrong. So I don't know. I mean, I think that quote really is a life-changing quote, you know, so just use it in your life. Hopefully all this kind of tied back together in some way or another. Been talking for like 18 minutes, fucking rambling about some shit. But, yeah, so I don't know. I'll post that quote in the show notes just so you have it. But, one thing that I've been doing is like certain things that I need to remember. I'll make a little thing and use it as a lock screen on my phone, you know. So lately I've been stressed out a lot and I find myself stressing about the future, which is kind of stupid because you don't know what the fuck is going to happen. So I have the quote, live life in day tight compartments on my phone so I can remember that. But if you're the kind of person that flies off the handle, maybe you could make one of those things and put that Viktor Frankl thing on your phone and you'll see it every day. Between stimulus and response is a space. Don't forget to take that space. Hope you got something out of this. If you're interested in that newsletter I was talking about, you can go over to machinestudio.com. I think you can scroll down to the bottom and there's a sign up thing there. I think I got a link on it on graffitimachine.com. If you go to my Instagram, click the link in the bio, there's probably a button there as well. I'm trying to get really committed to that, and I'm not going to spam you with like, here's a 2-for-1 sale or any of that kind of bullshit. It's all value stuff, but I will occasionally say, hey, you know, we ran too many of these things and we got them for cheap, you know, but that's always part mixed in with the value shit. So if you're interested in that at all, go over there and get on that, and appreciate your time and thank you. All right. Good.
Appreciate each and every one of you guys who are supporting the cause and continue to spread the love. And, yeah, stay up.